I'm Bob from Creation Station. This is Tech Talk Weekly, our weekly show where we talk about 3 or 4 interesting tech topics in the news, give you a fun library fact, and send you on your way in about 15 to 20 minutes. As always, if there's a story you'd like to see us talk about, Creation Station at broward.org comes right to me, and we'll try and get it on the show. Today, I have Miss Ruth Reid out from Southwest Regional Library. How are you doing, Ruth?
I'm great, Bob. How are you today?
Doing good. I cannot remember the first time I met you. It has been a while, hasn't it?
Yes, it's been a while.
It's been quite a while. This is November. This is Veterans Month, as far as we're concerned here at the library. We try to celebrate things all the month long. So all of our guests this month are also veterans, along with myself. Ruth, where were you when you did the military?
I was in the United States Army and Reserves. I served at several locations. I did my basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Then I moved on to San Antonio, Texas, to Fort Sam Houston, and
Yes.
then I went to Fort Stewart, Georgia from there.
Fort Stewart's a big place.
Yes, Fort Stewart is a big
Did you
place.
get how did you get deployed out anywhere?
No, I didn't. I just missed the deployment date to the Gulf War. Actually, my exit date was held up because of that. They wouldn't let me out.
I'm glad for you on that one.
Come on.
Yeah. No, yeah. No. But the kind of the point of the whole month is that we're just every day, everybody has a story behind them, like we've always been talking about. And these are just some of the people who work in the library system who happen to also be veterans. And with that, I want to get onto our first story of the day because this is a cool one. At least I find it cool. So octopuses, and we know octopi, it's actually technically octopi, not octopuses. I know, I get it. But they have eyes like us. We've talked about it on the show. They're really, really intelligent. Well, it turns out they have something new that we've figured out now. Their eyes are hardwired into their brain. Now, I know that sounds like, of course, why wouldn't they be? That's not how all of our eyes work, Ruth. Your eyes all have nerves. You've got your retina, you've got all your stuff there, and then you go to an optic nerve, but there's extra nerves along that pathway in between the light hitting your retina before it gets into your brain and does all the stuff. It turns out on an octopus, that's not the case. The light goes virtually directly into their brain, straight through the retina, right into their brains. And they have all the extra cells, all of our type of peripheral vision. That there is all going on around their whole body to give them extra input and extra sensory input for this. How much of that do you think you could handle, Ruth?
Um, that's very interesting. I think I can handle it. Only thing I might not be able to handle is not being able to see anything in color because their vision is black and white.
Exactly, right. It not only, I mean, and the low light source, really nice, black and white. I guess it's because color doesn't matter as much when you're down below, that far in the ocean. But I'm like, man, I got enough sensory input as it is. What is their brain like that it can handle all that stuff coming in all the time from all their arms, all their tactile, all their stuff? And now, wait a minute. Oh, by the way, they're actually getting sight from all these different sections too. I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to eat octopus again. I'm just saying it. They're way, way more intelligent than we're giving them credit for, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of black and white because when we eat, we like to look at our food, we want color and everything, but they have everything like, okay, it's bland, it's bland, it's bland. So,
Yeah. Maybe that's why they develop some of this intelligence stuff to make it more interesting for them as they've just evolved up and gotten more and more complex. They want something a little bit more interesting. Maybe that's why they do all the crazy stuff when they're in aquariums. That's a good point.
I'm
They're just
sure.
they're just bored. There we go. The octopus are just bored, and that they're messing with us now. That's all. Um, Another case of science finding something out that they didn't know they were going to find out. We have the space station up top. By the way, congratulations to the space station. 22 years now up in space. Anyone who's 22 or younger You've never lived in a time without humans living in space. That's almost half the population of the planet because the average age is only 30. Um, so up on the space station, we have obviously a lot of telescopes and instruments and everything. One of them is meant to detect mineral deposits, water, stuff like that on Earth, not pointing it away from the planet, pointing it down to the planet to do these things. Well, they came across some stuff that they couldn't quite tell at first, and then they realized they were detecting methane, and they detected some enormous amounts of methane coming out of the Earth. 50 different sites that they found that are what they're calling super emitters, and they are they're all over the planet. They're not just in one or two spaces. These are all man-made things where it's emitting out because of what we're doing with mining or transporting natural gas, et cetera, through pipelines. And so they figured out how to tweak the measurements after they realized what they could record and started taking recordings of these methane plumes coming out of places. Out in New Mexico, there's one that's about a 2 mile high, 2 mile long plume coming off. And now remember, methane is an invisible gas. So your eye is not seeing it when you're just driving by. They can detect it now, and they've got a whole bunch from Turkmenistan, some more than 20 miles long. It's a really horrible mess out there. It is the same amount of gas going up, 111,000 pounds per hour, which is crazy.
That is crazy. So what are they planning on doing with this, doing about this?
There we go. Right. I mean, and methane's one of the worst, greenhouse gases that's out there. Um, it is the stats they've got here in the article for you. And as always, all the links to all the articles are in the show notes. Come back and read these. Methane is actually much worse than CO2, than carbon dioxide, for warming the planet. But on the weird side, it actually dissipates way faster than carbon dioxide. It takes carbon dioxide something like 100 years to fully dissipate out of the atmosphere, whereas methane can be gone out of the atmosphere in 20 years or so.
So
As it dissipates out.
does this affect the climate control or the global warming?
Exactly right. Exactly. That's what it does. All this extra methane raises the temperature on the planet higher. And because that temperature goes higher, now you get more CO2 trapped, which makes the planet get even hotter for longer. If we don't have methane going up, then CO2 is still a horrible problem, but it doesn't run away into these horrible things. That's the problem on Venus. Methane, carbon dioxide causes all these problems. But definitely you got to come check out some of these maps. It was an amazing, amazing thing on here. Yeah, I know, isn't it? You kind of like, it makes you just like pause and like, come on, folks, we're running out of time. How come somebody doesn't just do something to fix this? And this is the easy stuff. This isn't like stop using gas. This is just like plug the leak. Don't just pump it into the air. Just put a cap on it and keep your equipment running right.
Well, a lot of time, Bob, when people don't see something, they think it's not an issue. So
Yeah.
just
Maybe we need to do that artificial coloring like they have on here with the.
Yes, that may be helpful.
If it was big and purple going out into the sky, everybody would be freaking out about it, huh?
I agree totally.
Yeah. Something else that we're not freaking out about yet, but maybe we should be. Gattaca. Did you ever see this movie, Ruth?
No, I did not.
Okay. So real briefly, Gattaca is a movie from 25 years ago, science fiction, where one of the things is it's a very genetics oriented results. So you go and you get the right DNA to create the right children, et cetera, and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a warning thing. It's not a thing to aspire to. It's a warning. It's like, hey, don't be like this. Well, we still 25 years later don't have any rules, regulations, laws. There's not a lot about it yet. And now we've got CRISPR going on, and all those other gene modification stuff that we can do, and we've talked about that a lot on the show too. But then now we're getting into the example of they've now, and there's some Israeli scientists have published a thing so that you can, it's called pre-implantation for doing in vitro fertilization, and you can test for certain diseases and choose whether or not to import these embryos or not. You can say, okay, well, we're going to test for these diseases while they're in embryonic state instead of waiting just till later on. So Israel is like, wait a minute, we might maybe need to finally start talking about this because we're not quite sure everybody should just be choosing.
Choosing your child.
I know.
So if everybody wanted a doctor, a lawyer, or athlete, they would just go in and pretty much order the specs and have the kid.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, doctor and lawyer aren't genetics really, but definitely athletics, definitely being smarter, being able to concentrate better, perhaps, depending upon whether we figure out those genes or not. And it was just coming up. The story floated to the surface for me because of some other miscellaneous stuff that I was reading. And I was like, huh, that was 25 years ago? I remember seeing that movie. Wait a minute. Nobody's ever come up with anything since? You would have thought somebody, I mean, given my cynical nature, I would have thought here in the United States, they might have managed to get a law passed saying you can't stop it because some company wants to be in control of it rather than the government. But how do you feel on that whole subject, Ruth?
It's not something I would do personally, but it's an interesting subject, and I'm not surprised that it's not being taken more advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially the testing part. I fully get the whole testing. Make sure that, if you're going to have a child, that they're as healthy as possible. I understand all of that. I don't know that I'm in agreement with the forced creating certain babies to meet those certain marks.
Right.
That's a little too far for me. I'm okay with screening out things. I don't want to screen in.
Screen in things.
Yeah, I don't want to lock those things in and make that happen. I think that man, it just gets. See, this is why we find these stories, folks.
Yes, what would the world be like with 10 Bobs?
Yeah. Let's go and take a look at, and ask if you're out there listening to the show, stop and ask your family and friends about that. Which ones would you actually want to create your perfect society with, and how far are you willing to go with that? Because that's the final story for today. Yatsu Siu. He is out in Hong Kong. He is someone who is big in Web3. Remember, Web3 is kind of the whole metaverse idea, and his thoughts between blockchain and metaverse and everything. But he has a proposal, I suppose, that what's going to happen is everything is going to be in a metaverse of its own choosing. And so when you've got your own metaverse that you've chosen to be in, that is the equivalent of being in your own country. And so tell me, Ruth, you're on Facebook.
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not on Facebook. Oh, you've managed to avoid. Good. So, but you in Facebook and all the various social media things, I mean, you're in a platform, you're in a thing where you have a group of friends or family or whatever that are much more spread out across a geographical area than a country, than any kind of state or country, etc. But where do we draw the line between the power of the corporation, like we were talking about in the last story, the power of corporations to write laws or have laws not written? Where does that draw the line, and where are people going to find their loyalties to? Because is there something that you're loyal to right now? The United States, you can be loyal to your country, but do you have something that's out there can you see something that is where you could have a loyalty to a company like that? Like you feel like you're part of it as a country-ish thing.
Not as a country's thing, no.
Yeah. And
Only,
yeah. Tell
go
me.
ahead.
I was gonna say it just feels very different than brand loyalty is very different than what I'm
Right.
talking about. The first thing that sprang to mind for me was sports. Like those, you get really fanatical about a particular team. And, I'm a big Dolphins fan. I don't think I'm so fanatical about it that I'm so, what? We're doing good this year. Come on now.
Yeah, let's go Dolphins. Yay.
Yeah. But I think someone could turn that into it's almost like turning it into a religion type of thing. And now we start messing. Where do you think how do we draw those lines for people?
Well, I think it should be more of an individual choice, but people will only do what they're allowed to do. And if you do draw lines, they'll have to follow them because to be part of it, they will have to follow the rules.
Yeah.
For them to just want to step out and create their own thing and be their own person, that would be difficult for a solo person or a small entity of people.
Yeah. And I think, that's a really nice point. I mean, it does take a certain number of people in your group to make it worthwhile, to make it viable, to keep it up. Yeah. To be able to pull that off.
All those Dolph fans, fill the stands on Sundays, they still have their
Yeah.
limitations to, after
Yeah. Yep.
24
Yep.
hours,
Yep.
they're back into society with everybody else.
Think there's a Dolphins metaverse out there?
No.
That would be that'd be pushing it a little bit.
Yes.
I don't think I need to be part of it. I'm not quite that crazy. Of course, my family might be disagreeing with me on that, but I'm just loud. That's all it is. Thank you for being here, Ruth.
You're welcome.
As always, we do these things. Tell me what's going on out of Southwest Regional. What you got coming up out there?
Well, we're doing early voting right now. We're preparing
You
for
guys are one of the
storybook.
busiest places for that. I'm
We
certain.
are the busiest location for early voting. We're preparing for the upcoming Storybook Festival on the 19th of this month, which is the first time we're going full scale since COVID.
Yeah.
We're going back to pre-COVID planning inside and outside events. So
And if you haven't been to Storybook Festival out at Southwest Regional, folks, you need to come out there and see it. This is one of those events where the library really puts on a nice show. We do all sorts of things. I think we had pre-pandemic numbers. We had 2,000 or 3,000 people showing up at these events.
Add another 1,000 to that.
Yeah. Oh. You think
Yeah,
it's still going to get that high? You think it's going to hit the 4,000 this year?
I believe so. We're expecting it.
I'm doing Google Earth and GeoGuessr out there as part of the scavenger hunt. I'll be running that section. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yes.
It's going to be a good thing. Thank you again, Miss Ruth. Let me throw up our final slide here so we can get out of here and actually end this on just a little bit over time because I never actually fit this in. If you've got a favorite library or librarian you'd like to see featured on the show, email us, creationstation@broward.org. Thank you to everybody, and we'll see you next week.